Okay, we are up and running. Whew, okay. So let's just check that this is working. Sorry, this is always the first few minutes of every stream now. Okay. So if I can hear this. So let's just check that this is working. Sorry, this is always the first. That's me. Okay, great. So we are up. Okay, so what we are doing is getting back into streaming, having been away a little while. I had been off moving offices and kind of off doing some Stripe integration API work that I didn't really want to stream, but I will cover in a couple of other streams in the future. Just to, I think it's kind of interesting how there was a lot of work to do to become compliant with the new SCA stuff for Stripe. And I think if you're getting started with Rails and Stripe in the UK or in the EU, it's maybe not as simple as it used to be. So I think that could kind of be interesting. So I haven't really promoted this stream particularly at all. I just thought it would be interesting to kind of just do some debugging of some issues from Rollbar and get back into the flow of working on something live. And then kind of push it in the future when I've got a bit kind of something better planned. So let's dive straight into some context. Working on Rails, doing some coding live streaming, and I work on an app called Echo Left, which is campaigns, fundraising, and events for good causes and other organizations. So a lot of bookings and event registrations and things like that. It's mainly Ruby and Rails, JavaScript, front-end stuff, and these are not tutorial streams or anything like that. So a lot of the feedback that I get is that people enjoy watching people work, or they're interested in how they do things. So hopefully we're going to fix a couple bugs and just go from there. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I am using a new setup, so hopefully you can hear and see me, and it's not too echoey because my office hasn't been set up yet, so it's just a bare room basically. Alright, so let's dive straight in. So Rollbar is the system we use for exception handling in our Rails app, and we've got an exception here. I'm going to try and do a couple. So this is what Rollbar looks like when it's showing you your exceptions. So this is the actual error that we're receiving. It does do some pretty smart grouping things where it thinks that some related error messages are the same error. And if I go back out to 232 in general, this is the actual exception. That was an instance of the exception. So you get kind of how often it's appeared over, through time. And hey, cool. Thanks. So you can see how often the issue is occurring. You get the stack trace. It's pretty helpful most of the time to kind of point you in the right direction. And you also get the individual occurrences of when the issue has happened. So you get so much information often just from this page. Rollbar issues tend to kind of fall into, for me, one of several buckets. There's obviously urgent. You've done a deploy and you're watching Rollbar to check that you haven't broken anything then and there. There's then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got things like bots that are constantly hitting code paths that may not be issues particularly, but are just causing something to happen. You're apt to throw an exception that you either need to ignore or handle or do something with, very noisy. And then in between are the really interesting ones, which is like you need to debug and spend time with and work out if there's a real issue there, how is the code ending up in an exception. And sadly with Ruby, a lot of the time it is for like undefined method vanilla class or something like that, where it's a path that has been missed in QA or testing. So this specific issue is kind of a strange one, actually. I think I've just missed something out. I kind of know a little bit in advance. As you get used to your own Rollbar setup, you can kind of recognize errors that kind of crop up regularly. So obviously seeing things like headless Chrome being hit, you know, like, oh, okay, well that's interesting. You know, how come that's there? Rollbar try and do a good job of actually highlighting bots that are on here. So SEMrush is like an SEO software that regularly seems to have, like, I'm not sure where it gets its path listings from, but it seems to try and do some really cool stuff. So people, I'm just going to get. So one of the things that Rollbar does do is integrate with things like Devise or CanCan or whatever. Must be what provides current user. It would be Devise, and if it knows the person, it can actually pass that information through. If you're in the EU, remember that's a GDPR thing where they're passing PII, personally identifiable information, but you probably need Rollbar as a data processor anyway. So we've got some occurrences here. We've got information about them. That's basically all we need to know for this one. Let's kind of jump in. So we can see that the URL is always the same. It's this. It's a charity event, and they need to verify their email. So we've got the IDs. It's obviously affecting a few users. And when we go back to our traceback, it's obvious that they are. It's trying to call this method .confirmed. They have to. We send them an email, and they would click on an email to confirm their email address. And when they get here, we're checking whether they have confirmed their email address or not. That's what confirm does. And obviously, there is no current user. It's nil in this instance. And so we shouldn't be calling current user.confirmed. So I'm assuming that we just need a safe navigator here, which is ampersand dot in Ruby, which we've done elsewhere. So I have done an investigation, and I think this is basically a case of missing tests. So there are several places where we do this idea of account verification. So we do these setups, which are like multi-step processes. So here we have a donation setup, and here we have an event registration transaction setup. Event registration transaction is the long way of saying it's a booking and is currently being renamed booking. Actually, that setup is going to get rebuilt soon as booking. And here you can actually see, this is what I was checking earlier on, was that ampersand dot is here in the donation setup, but we obviously missed it here. But the reason that it got missed is because we didn't have a test, or we don't have a test for this. So I've started to put that together. So in donation setup, account verification controller, we have a test here that says, let me hide some of this to make this a bit bigger. So hopefully this is legible. So here you can see we have context as a non-logged in visitor should redirect to a login page. And that's the test that's covered that would have caught that lack of a safe navigator. But we didn't have the corresponding test for some reason. So I started to put that together, and we'll go through that together now. So let's take a look at the file I just opened before this. And close that again. So I have had some feedback that this can be hard to read on a small screen. I'm really sorry. I have bumped the font size up, but again, you might need a slightly larger screen. I have bumped it up, but I start to run out of lines on the screen. I want to try and fit like 50 lines on the screen at the same time. So hopefully it's legible. And I am aware that my little video covers the bottom of the console at the moment, actually, which I will try and move. Let me work out how to do that. I think it's this one. So can I move that live? I don't know if I can. But I tell you what I can do. I can just put this. Move panel to bottom. Okay, so now I only cover it up if I go over the long part, which I'll try and bear in mind and not put anything down here. Let's move this down just a touch. Okay, so there's nothing too crazy in any of this so far. Okay, so we're going to replicate this test. So this is the one I started with. So we need a charity event, and we need a booking for that charity event. And the downside of doing this is that having it horizontal means you can't actually read the failure because the stack trace is on the way. Okay, so we need an email. Okay, so we want to just add a trait to that factory. I was just setting this up earlier, so we had a series of traits on our factories that make sure the test is set up correctly. We try not to nest them too much so we don't create 50,000 factories for every test. Trait origin has email. Okay, that's obviously not that one. Oh, it should have an email. Is it the user that doesn't have an email? Oh, no, okay, current use undefined method email for nil class. Ah, okay, so we're bumping into the error in our test. Great, perfect. So this is the same issue. We haven't got a current user, so even our test is failing. So event registration down case. So that's here, it's trying to claim it. Claim if unclaimed. And as user, so we can claim it. So what that's actually doing is on our setups, you can create a model without having yet created your user account. And so then we let you create it, we let you type in this basically start your booking, and we then send you to hey, do you want to carry this on? Give us an email address and password. And then at the next step, you then claim that model that you've just created up. So just going to say in this test that it has a user already, so on the indication that they've jumped past that step, it's just a trait in the factory that represents that. Perfect, and so now undefined method confirmed for nil class, jump back to rollbar, that is the issue we're getting there. So that would indicate that if we do put this in, put the safe navigator in and rerun it, we should now be redirected to a login page, but that is not what is happening here. We are being taken to the path for the next step, which is not what should be happening. So where are we being redirected to? That's fine, because so we don't know if we have a user, so we don't need an authorization check because they haven't got a user yet. So check if the user is okay, so claim if it's unclaimed. So when it does that return, where is it going? Oh, I see. We haven't set up Pundit to redirect it on the claim here, so it will fail there. Okay, so let me try and see what's happening. So basically, it's the authorized call here. So we're actually in a bit of a confusing situation here because we are in a transition from previously using CanCan, or CanCanCan as the gem became called for authorization, to using Pundit. And so skip authorization check is actually a CanCan method, whereas the authorize here is from Pundit. And so it's the authorize that is making the test here that I have lost. Pass. And we haven't got that here, so we're just failing. Brings our policy, and it would be this naming is brutal. I'm not looking forward to it. Well, actually, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sick of having this kind of class having two names. So let's check our policies then. Okay, so booking setup. Okay, so this is so annoying. So I'm gonna call it. I actually have if you follow me on like dev.to or whatever that website is, I have a question naming well-used models in legacy Rails, not legacy but older Rails apps, and my friend Adam replied, and it's awful, but it's basically at the moment a slow transition. It's an awful process that I'm going through at the moment, but we'll get there. Okay, so booking setup, event registration transaction policy, is that what they're named? Yeah, underscore policy. So then when you go into them, I think you that's a public one. Need something that's got, here we go. Can never remember how these go, so that's so booking setup policy. I know I'm not providing a lot of context here, but it's just fixing the bug, so I'm just going to kind of smash through it, and if you have any questions specifically, you can ping me afterwards or anything like that. Event registration transaction policy, and it is one's on claim, so I'm going to do the same thing. And I can actually go in and grab that one out, which would be easier. Ah, there we go. So that's the YouTube is telling me you might be having streaming issues, but it looks like it's recovered at my end, so I'm gonna keep going. Apologies if the stream has errors later on. Okay, so this looks exactly like what we want. I'm gonna say that should be booking. And that should be okay. We can set up policy event registration transaction policy. So there's usually a typo because these stupid class names are so long. So let's booking set up policy. So, oh, I didn't put policy in the folder name. I have to do that because Pundit has issues with name spacing sometimes. So amazing. Right, so that will now fix this bug and not let that issue happen again. And what we should be able to do now then is there are other tests in here that should we should kind of add these in as well. I'm not sure why they're not there. I don't know why there wouldn't have been a test for this. So does that just work just by copying and pasting that over the back? That'd be pretty good. No. It was worth a try though. Okay, so the wrong user. Oh, okay. So that doesn't. We don't need any new user. We can do. What if we do that? So earlier on when I added that trait to say has user, how did I get around that in the other one? Claim if unclaimed. So why is claim done here? And the other one it will be done. So that's current user in claim. Okay, so I think this is just different generations. This code looks nice and clean. This method is brutal. So that. Using guard clauses instead of conditionals at the end of the line. And they're doing the same thing. So those methods are actually saying this hasn't, the only reason that hasn't been extracted out to a controller concern, I think it's just that I haven't got to it because there's pretty much the same behavior. So let's see if that resolves that. Yeah, okay, so now it's the same page, it's open twice. And what was the other one in the donation one? It was, have I closed it? I closed it, I do that all the time. I think it's kind of the way that VS Code gives you these italicized tabs. So you think it's open, but they're not really open. So as soon as you click away, they click off, they close. So as a different user, again, unauthorized response. Okay. Well, it should be pretty much the same test. Great. Okay, so how do we test that? So we want to try and book an event. So let me just see what events are open at the moment. I've got some production data in here. So normally I would create a test event, but we probably won't need to if I've got something real we can use. Because the events are real, but there's no person identifiable stuff in there, so we can show the real events that are running. They might have images missing or something like that, but you can go and see the real ones on production. Okay, so events. Is this event open? Nope. Is this event open? Yes, okay. So let's do it in an incognito window. So we've got an event here. It hasn't got any images because it's my development environment, so you can't see them on that version. Come on. I'm sure why sometimes I get a 200 in the console, in the terminal, but then for some reason the browser just hangs. If anybody ever knows why that happens, I'd be super interested. Because then you have to kill the server and bring it back up. But it already says it returned a response. Something got lost in the lost in translation in there. Doesn't happen very often, just like once in a while. So that will now kick in. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we don't have a user. How are we going to do this? Because we basically want to say, wow, okay, that is a long name of an event. So we're going to say Jane Smith, typo, example.com, doesn't really matter. Click next. Just going to choose a password. Okay, so this is her email to confirm it, so that's the path we need. And so presumably if we open so presumably we just need a browser. So if I open Firefox and just do like an incognito, just do an incognito Firefox window. Hang on a second, I'll check it back over. Okay, so I need this path. Is that going to take me to where I think it is? No, this is the, so okay. So this is the path from the. So if we remember back from Rollbar, back in our occurrences, this is the path we get. So blah blah blah, registration, blah blah blah, verify your email. So we managed to get here. How did they get here without an account? They must have done this. Their session had timed out, or they've done something, or they've copied and pasted this URL. We want to paste this into Firefox, which is where they would have received their error. And what it should now do is take it back to the sign-in page. Can't show the page you may need to sign up and continue before visiting. What do I actually want the experience to be there? Because they can progress. So if I do log in now, I have already forgotten. I put a typo in the email address, didn't I? Just need to grab this email address. That'll just take me home. Oh, hey, amazing. Takes me, okay, right, okay, that is annoying, but okay, so let's log out. Let's go back to that path. Let's verify our email address and then let's go in. Let's just check. So if we go, oops, no. So now we get sent back. That's the wrong order because we probably just saved it in that session there. So let's do it here now. So let's verify the email address. Can I drag that link onto there? Nope. Not well. Can I do? Ah, it's just dragging the text. I want the URL. There we go. Okay, so you confirmed your email address. Great. Blah blah blah. So now if we go back to the Firefox window, I know this isn't making any sense, but I'm just interested to see what happens. Users seem to work their way around this all the time in weird ways, and they get confused. So now if I go here, I then log in with that email. So I can still carry my booking. Oh my god, amazing. Okay, super confusing. But you wouldn't normally get to... Oh, okay, great. So now I'm logged in. Okay, cool. Right, that seems to resolve that issue, which wasn't being hit too much, but that is cool. So let's put a commit message up. So let's take a look. So what I tend to do while I'm doing those is kick off rspec to just run the whole suite before I commit anything, so that will help me catch any issues. And I want to go back and check why donation setup account variation and the event registration transaction account verification. Oh my god, that is the longest controller name ever. Insane. So other than claim and unclaimed, is there anything that this is getting from donation setup base? No, I think it's just that claim and unclaimed got moved up there. Okay, yeah, fair enough, because they get moved up, so that's... So adding that authorize in. It's just that claim. So presumably the rest of donation setup also uses... Yeah, so you can see that these setups are just steps of controllers that you pass through, fairly short, but that the event registration transaction setup is using authorized bang, which is CanCanCan, and uses an ability class, and I have transitioned the donation setup over to use Pundit, which is authorized, which is a lot easier to manage. We have loads of policies, or we do the way I do it anyway. Not sure. Seems to work out as long as you're okay with loads of files. But that is what was causing that issue. So now I have moved the first of them over. The event registration checks and setup account verification controller has been moved over. And we just need to go through into the other ones. Although these are getting redone into bookings controller, so that's going to stay live while we build the other one. And then go through here. So I'm going to say fix issue with log in sys to view email page. Not sure why there weren't tests on this that are for the corresponding controller in the donation setup. So this flagged exception rollbar. Let me go back at some point and check the commit history for that control, because I'm not sure how I would have even made it to production without getting tests on edit Pundit. Transition to using that everywhere. Expiring the safe navigator, add Pundit as a transition to use that everywhere. Tests. Okay, so that's going to go up. Great, so I'll test it pass locally. I'll put it up on a branch that will run tests in CI as well, and then kind of go through there. And then what I tend to do is when the code gets merged, either make a PR, or there's only one commit for that. Make a PR because that creates a test app on Heroku. We use Heroku review apps for that, and then we can mark the exception in Rollbar as fixed or as resolved. But one thing that you want to do is not, or that I find useful, is not resolving the issue until it's actually made it all the way into production, because Rollbar will reopen the issue. So you think, hey, I've solved it, and then it hasn't made it to production yet, and like a bot hits it, or whatever is happening here has hit it, and it's really annoying. So that's actually true as even if you use Heroku, they have a tool called Preboot, where you can, when you deploy, your code doesn't go live immediately because it doesn't hot swap the dynos, the servers out. It will create a new version of the app and then slowly kill off the live servers until the new code is all that's there. So also if you deploy out to production, you hit resolve, and then you're waiting for the servers to die. Sometimes it can be like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. So again, it will reopen the issue. And I have this link to GitHub, so it will also create an exception as an issue in GitHub as well. So that all goes around in a circle. So in general, I don't tend to resolve them until they are way out in production. I'm happy. But what it also lets you do is put in the commit number when you resolve it in Rollbar. So you can click straight through from the resolved issue later, and if you put that in here, it will actually close the GitHub issue for you as well. So it kind of does it so that you can come into Rollbar and kind of see the history of it. And I think it might put, I think in the issue it has a link to in the GitHub issue it creates, it has a link and a stack trace to the Rollbar exceptions. You kind of get it both ways. All right, it's getting kind of late here, so I am gonna finish that for today. But this has been a kind of nice one to get back into it. So, like I said, I haven't done any promo. I didn't really have any plans for today. But I'm gonna, now that I've got the office set up and I'm done with the kind of not done, but mostly done with the Stripe integration stuff for SCA, which we'll go over another time. Yeah, so hopefully this was useful for people, and let me know if there's anything you need. My name, which I forgot to say at the start, is Max Shelley, and you can find me on any of the links around here and at Building Echo Left. So thanks a lot. Hope you guys have a good day.